Hi, it's Diane, I Art Studio. I got asked about my last video on cold wax. What is that substrate you're using? And the substrate is called Multimedia Artboard. I order it from the manufacturer, multimediaartboard.com. It's very easy to deal with the owner. He's very accommodating. And it's a wonderful medium. It's thin, like paper. However, it's tougher than paper. I think it has been impregnated with clay. So it's very, very tough. You can work on it forever. The one thing I would warn you against is it is a bit brittle. I can see this piece has been damaged on the corner. It was probably dropped at some point. I'm not worried about that. I can repair it when I'm finished with the painting and when I mount it to a panel. But what I want to talk to you about today is the Multimedia Artboard, how I prepare the board with a paper backing. Number one, to keep the backside clean. And that way, when I go to mount it on the panel, there isn't a buildup of oil paint from my fingerprints and having it lay on the table, which wasn't clean. And the other reason is I go off the edges with the scrapers. And if I didn't have the paper backing, it would get all over the table and the mess would be just too much. So let me take you over to the table, show you how I put the paper backing on it, okay? Okay, welcome to my table. Let me show you how I am going to attach the multimedia board to the newsprint backing. This is basically newsprint. It's packing paper. It's used for packing. You can find it in any hardware store. It comes in 24 inches by 24 inches. But the multimedia board I'm using is 18 inches by 24 inches. So it would come right to the edge of the paper, and that's not useful for me. I have to extend that paper out. And the way I'm going to do it is by cutting a piece in half and simply taping it together to give myself, maybe a 4-inch extension. I think that should work. So I'm just going to run the tape down the seam, actually on both sides. I like this lavender painter's tape. It's supposed to not stick to the surface as much. I think it's a little harder to tear. It feels like it's a little more plasticky than the blue tape, but that's fine. Okay, there we go. Now, this is where it gets interesting. The size is good. So, what I'm going to do, Multimedia Artboard has two sides. One has a slight texture and the other doesn't. With cold wax, for me, it doesn't really matter which side I choose. I'm going to get so much texture on this, it's not really going to matter. So I'm just going to lay it on the table. The table's covered with plastic. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip a piece of tape for each side, and I'm going to lay it halfway on the Multimedia Artboard, half off. And the reason that I am doing this on the plastic is so I can pull it off very easily. It's sticky back here and not here. So let's try that on all four sides. Here we go. Okay, got my tape. That's the sticky side that was laying down on the table. I'm gonna put my newsprint down. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to lay this on the newsprint, sticky side up. Sticky side up. Now this is very tricky. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another piece of tape, approximately the same length, and I am going to go right up to the edge of the multimedia board, over the top of the tape, and I'm going to tape this piece of tape onto the paper. So you see how that works? That way I can go right up to the edge. Whereas if I had made a mistake and taped this down onto the newsprint, where the tape was stuck would act like a resist. And when I pulled the tape off, there would be no paint under that spot. So that is the beauty of this method. Let's try it up here. Let's see. It's a little hard to see what I'm doing. So this is still the sticky side here, but this has been covered with the tape. And this tape is attached to the newsprint. This one isn't yet up here. So I've got 2 more sides to do. So that is a tricky way of protecting the back of your multimedia board and protecting your table so you can scrape right off the edge of your paper. There is no tape showing on the multimedia board. So I'm going to have completely clean edges when I remove the tape. So we're ready to begin this painting. And a lot of people just want to activate the surface with anything. You can use pencil. Some people like RNF stick. I'm going to try Stabilo. Let me grab my Stabilo. Stabilo is a water-based pencil. And cold wax and oil, of course, are oil. The rule is you can go over water-based medium with oil. You can't go over oil with water-based medium. It won't stick. So this won't be a problem. Stabilo pencils are considered aquarellable. They call them aquarellable, and what that means is they're activated with water. So this is where you can put a little intention in your painting. Jerry McLaughlin talks about writing poetry on his work. A lot of his work is based on particular poets. I don't really start out with that much intention. What I will do is often make a rule for myself. My last piece that I completed was a bridge. So let's stay in the theme of bridges. I like the idea of bridges symbolically. They connect places, they separate places. We're all familiar with the Rainbow Bridge when our pets pass away. And so there's a lot of meaning to bridges. The little rule I'm going to set for myself is a line from one end to the other. I'm going to use 2 pencils together. Boom. Okay. That's more than a line. That's several lines. I like to get my body into the work when I'm starting. Rebecca Kroll calls this activating the surface. You've got an intimidating white surface. You need to put something down just to break the pristine appearance. Now, because it's aquarellable, I'm able to activate this pencil with water. So I've got a beautiful expressive mark there. I find working in the cold wax not as easy to get the type of expressive marks that I generally have worked with in acrylic, where I may take a very thick, big brush loaded with paint and slap it down and let it splatter, and that's so satisfying. It's not quite like that in the cold wax. It's more like, oh, let me put down a layer. Let me put another one down. Let me scrape some action into it. Funny thing is, after days and days and days of working, I can get the feeling of a very, very active surface that looks very much like I splattered the paint across it. And you know I'm not using brushes, so that's not how it's happening. It's happening with patience and looking and blocking areas out and adding areas on top, getting a lot of colors underneath and then quieting it down to a palette of maybe 3 colors. So I just want to show you my main tools are scrapers. And then I may use other things for texture. This is a sea sponge that I like to press into the surface. It gives me a beautiful mark. That's one of my favorites. This is an old dish scrubber sponge. This one's made out of coconut, so it actually has some pretty interesting texture in it, and I can use it like this to get little blocks, or I can use the whole surface of the sponge to get more of a rectangle. I found this kind of brush somewhere, and after you use it for a while, it gets clogged up with paint. And Jerry was saying in our workshop that he likes it when it gets clogged up with paint because the marks become way more unique than when it was a pristine bristle brush. I have a feather. This is an old piece of burlap that's probably ready for the trash bin. It's pretty hard, and it looks like most of the texture's gone. I used to press that into the surface. This is a little handmade rake. My husband made a little Zen garden once, and this was for raking sand, and it ended up in my texture box. Brayers, of course, all different kinds of brayers. Another scrub brush. I have a stencil. And I love this. This was the top of a perfume bottle, and it's got a beautiful oval shape. I've used this a lot. Could use the side, you could use the bottom. This is a stencil someone gave me made out of foam. It says love. This could be pressed into the surface. So you will discover what textures you like, what you like to make the textures with. My favorite is a skewer. I think I have one here. This is my favorite tool because I can really scratch into the surface with this. So I'm going to stop now, and when we meet next time, I'm going to show you about starting the painting and how that's done. I'm going to take you through the process, okay? So, good night from I Studio. Remember, art is a practice, and practice makes perfect. Don't get discouraged. Learn to sit with the process, okay? See you next time.